All right, approval of city council minutes.
Move to approve.
Brooks.
Yes.
Holmberg. Lund.
Yes.
Kushner.
Yes.
Jacobs.
Yes. All right, adoption of the agenda.
Move to adopt.
Brooks.
Yes.
Holmberg.
Yes.
Lund.
Yes.
Kushner.
Yes.
Jacobs.
Yes. All right, presentation, Johnson County Economic Development.
Sorry, it's really awkward, isn't it? I'll go with the flow, yeah. So you do have our presentation. I will express my appreciation to be here in person. It's good to be out of the office and seeing people. So not only via Zoom or on video conference, but it's really good to be here. I'm Tracy Brantner. I'm the Economic Development Director for Johnson County Economic Development Corporation. I have been in this position for 14 years. And it's been my pleasure to provide services, economic development services for Johnson County and really the region for that number of years. I've been in the business for about 35 years because I started when I was 12. So I don't know anything else. So if the economic development profession goes by the wayside, I will be at Walmart because those jobs are highly in demand, I can tell you. So we're going to talk a lot today about a variety of things, but I want to let you know that if you have a question at any point, please feel free to stop me and let's address the question, and we'll use the time that we have in the best way possible. So I know Danielle, I think, is going to change the slides for me, hopefully, but just to give you a little bit of an overview, and you have this in your packet. Today we're going to cover, I know your agenda says to July because that's what's expected in the contract, but we're really going to take it a step further. We're going to be from your fiscal year, which is October 1st to the end of September 2020. And we're going to cover a myriad of things. And as I said, please be sure and stop me if you have any questions or concerns you've been wanting to ask. So we're going to do a brief overview of JCEDC, and then we're going to provide a summary of the pre-COVID work, life in the before times, as they say. And then we're going to move on to transformative responses. We've put this in the category of COVID and Small Business Development Center response. And then a brief economic snapshot, talk a little bit about that, and then planning for pivots for 2021. So most of you know JCEDC. We are a 501c3 organization. We've been around since 1995. Actually, 2020 was our 25th anniversary, and we had planned a couple of celebrations to commemorate that milestone. But as it turned out, we decided it was probably not in good taste and decided that we'd wait till next year or maybe the year after to celebrate those milestones. We do serve all of Johnson County and all of the communities. We have programs of work with all of our communities in one way or fashion. We also have several side activities that we're working on. For example, over in Holden, we're doing some stormwater work with them and a consultant. We do a fair amount of infrastructure development, mainly as it relates to not only placemaking, which we'll talk a lot about later, but also just community readiness. Making sure that your community is ready for economic development and projects and job creation and investment. We work from a data-driven action plan. We collaborate and share resources really across the region. I don't know how you work otherwise in today's environment. You would be very limited if you didn't collaborate and share resources across the region. So, if 2020 has taught us anything, it's the importance of this collaboration and sharing. We've been in a position in 2020 to do more with less, and we've had to do so. And there's not any going to go back to the way it was before. And so, having those resources available really strike to the importance of having those things and having the people that are willing to roll up their sleeves and do what it takes to make things happen. Most of you sitting right here, we very much value and appreciate. So we don't know what we'd do without that partnership. We do have a board of directors, obviously. We have 15 directors on the board. They provide primarily policy oversight. Harold and Casey are on the board representing the city of Warrensburg. And we have many other representatives really from across the county, leaders in their own right, from Knob Noster, Wheaton, Holden, manufacturing, just trying to provide good policy, good leadership for our board of directors and for staff. We do have a 2020 investors. Our investors, again, vary widely across the county, and you can see those up there. If you have a chance to say thank you, please express your appreciation. This year particularly has been a challenge, like most nonprofits everywhere. It's been a challenge to raise funds and do the things that you need to do. And actually just doing more with less is probably the name of the game. So thank you to those 2020 investors. Without their generous financial support, the capacity to deliver quality economic development services would be greatly diminished. And we very much appreciate and value their contributions. Priority 1, fundamental economic development strategies. You've seen these before. I'm just going to kind of refresh everybody's memory, not only for you, but also for the audience. So we have 5 goals at JCEDC. This was all as a result of our 2017 strategic plan. That 2017 strategic plan is supposed to take us to 2021. I can tell you that this year we sort of threw it out and took what we needed. Worked on what we needed to work on, and then we'll set the course for 2021, which we'll talk a little bit more about later. So basically, this is priority number 1. This is job 1 for any economic development organization, is to not only keep what you have, keep them growing, keep them profitable in terms of your business community, and then also retaining the businesses that you have, even if it takes, just succession plans. Helping them exit in the right way possible. And then also attraction efforts, which we'll also talk a little bit more about later. But basically, with regard to business attraction this year, obviously our focus and energy has been largely on retention and expansion efforts of all of our businesses across Johnson County, both small and large. But attraction also has been on the radar. And so the deal flow this year, you might think it was down. It was not. It was about average to last year. And in fact, we closed more deals across the state of Missouri than we had last year. So deal flow was good. Deal closing was good. And so there's a couple of other nuances we'll talk about later. But for the most part, in terms of project deal flow, it was pretty standard, pretty average. Obviously, April, May, and June didn't look like last year, but it averaged out over that time. Placemaking. So this was a new goal in 2017. It was redefined as a supporting role for other entities across Johnson County and really across the region. Placemaking, the term placemaking gets confused on occasion with quality of life, but it's really more about the process. Placemaking is a process of creating quality places where people want to live, work, play, learn, all of the things that people are looking for. This was incredibly important before the pandemic, because young people, particularly young professionals, were looking for that quality of place first before they were looking for that workplace. Now, with remote work and all the flexibility that the pandemic has provided us, and we're not going back, that has made placemaking even more important. And so quality of place, being the best of the best, where people want to live, work, play, and learn, is going to be even more important as we move forward. Remote work is here to stay. So how we position ourselves for that in terms of our quality of place is going to be very meaningful conversation in the next couple of years. So stay tuned for more on that.
Hey, Tracy,
Yes.
wouldn't you consider the final decision of Dollar Tree distribution to come here as part of placemaking? Because remember, they had a conversation of where would you see yourself living?
Yes.
And,
Yes.
you know, we had to be there. The final
Yeah.
analysis, it was the
Yeah.
place to live.
Yeah. Again, placemaking was critically important before the pandemic. Because it was all about talent, right? It was all about keeping talent, developing talent, and attracting talent. And talent is going to go where talent wants to live. And if, places in North Carolina look and feel better than places in Missouri, then that's where talent's going to go. But now we've added this whole element of remote work to that elevates that conversation even more. But the words that Dollar Tree said, for those that don't know, was that they looked at several locations, obviously all across the US, and they chose Warrensburg, not because of where we were at the time that they looked and evaluated all of those numbers and comparisons and facts and things like that, but where they thought we were going in the future. And I, like you, thought that spoke volumes about where Warrensburg could be, and really Johnson County could be, if we just made sure that we were staying out of the ditches and headed in the right direction. So yeah, thank you, Scott. The thing that we worked on more this year was just supporting that culture of innovation and entrepreneurship. And that really was because the pandemic called for it. It wasn't that we were ill-positioned at all, but our workload significantly increased to supporting entrepreneurs and small businesses across Johnson County because that's what was required of us. And so we have long provided services to small and large businesses, support services, primarily in the access to capital, financing tools, financing incentives, structuring the deal kind of way. But I can tell you over the last 2 years, even before the pandemic, that we were positioning ourselves to provide greater support services for small businesses. And not only educating ourselves about what that took and talking to small businesses about what that took, but really putting all the pieces together for our organization to be able to deliver first-class service. It was only when pandemic struck that we looked like we were the smartest people on the planet because we had already built this infrastructure, right? We had already built all of what it took to, and we're still building it, not done yet. All of what it took to do that and to help support small businesses here. I think the issue here is that nobody knows that. So getting the word out to our small businesses and our entrepreneurs has been kind of a challenge. And I think there's more work to be done there. It's not, that's been our fault. We've not done what we needed to do to make that connection. So. Obviously, we've always provided services along the lines of, as I mentioned earlier, but through all the stages of economic development and small business support, from startup to growth to expansion to succession. We've always provided that. Moving along to talent, retention, development, and attraction. So in the before times, before we were before March 16th, we were really working on trying to educate ourselves about what the talent situation looked like in the region. And so we had embarked on a very expensive assessment that we were getting ready to start. It's called the Talent Ecosystem Assessment and Work Plan with a site consultant, Janet Adey, who had helped us provide site development services during the Dollar Tree. Actually, before the Dollar Tree, we were doing readiness work for for the Dollar Tree project. And so she came back and was going to provide some services with regard to talent that she is well known for, really across the U.S. And so we had aligned ourselves with educating ourselves about what programs are out there, not only on the demand side of talent, but also on the supply side. What were educators doing? What were other nonprofits doing? And we were inventorying all of that. And that's still available. And we haven't done much with it since March. But you'll see that a little bit later. But basically, we were saying we needed meaningful work experience programs for talent because we have to develop the talent that's here. We wanted to connect ourselves with internships and apprenticeships. You've seen some of that with the Intern Connect website. You've seen some of that with partnering with regard to the state of Missouri's apprenticeship program. All of that, we were getting ready to, we had inventoried and we're getting ready to market a lot of that. And then adjusting training and education curriculum to meet employers' needs, that's a lot easier said than done. But basically, it takes a long time for schools to change curriculum. And I'm talking about all schools, from elementary to secondary to, higher education. It takes a long time to change those curriculums. And so it takes that connection between employers and educators to not only see the benefits of doing that, but also to make that happen and to make that something that sticks in the curriculum and is meaningful to employers. And then fundamental economic development strategy of just regionalism. We've talked a little bit about that already. We do a lot of work across the 5-county area. I serve as chair of the Central Missouri Economic Development Alliance. I serve as chair of the Conference of Economic Development Strategies Plan, which is a 4-county group. So there's a lot of cross-pollination between economic development organizations and other counties in the area, and workforce development and talent. So we're involved in a lot of those things. So let's talk about the before times. So I know you can't see this, and I apologize, but really I just wanted to say that there was a lot going on behind the scenes between October 1st and mid-March. Honestly, and you probably heard me say this before, we had just finished with a day-long conversation with site consultants on Friday. We had tweaked the survey for the talent for both the supply side survey and the demand side survey on Friday. It was a day long. And we left thinking that on Monday morning, we're going to launch this project. And we came back on Monday morning and said, we're not launching this project. And in fact, that project still sits on the shelf on hold. And so, but at the time, we were educating ourselves about what was going on in the talent retention, development, and attraction side of, even best practices across the U.S. And so, in fact, I think that week we maybe had a meeting with Scott and United Way to talk about maybe some of the things they were doing. And so, still kind of inventorying. So, stop, pivot, do something else on that Monday morning, and it didn't take us long to pivot and do something different. But go to the next slide. So this has been our marketing tool for guiding the business journey for all of our small businesses here in Johnson County. And as you can see by the logos at the bottom, this is a partnership between the Small Business Development Centers here in Missouri and State Fair Community College, which is where we report to in terms of our center in Johnson County Economic Development. Again, we're delivering those results from idea to exit. And we tried to get the word out as quickly as possible about our support services. We started meeting with SBA, Small Business Development Center, almost immediately and daily, and even on Saturdays. We worked every day, Monday through Saturday, for quite a while, well into the July, August time frame, and we never left the office. There were a lot of livelihoods at stake. There were a lot of personal savings at stake, and we take that seriously. And so we worked our tails off to try to do whatever we could to help those businesses. These are the services that we offer, general services at the time. We'll talk a little bit more about the COVID response specifically, but just for the audience and for the public, these are the services that we provide. We also have a microloan program that quickly we used. In fact, we had some applicants that are borrowers that were already in the program. And like SBA, we hurried up and did some deferments. We did 6 months deferments with interest-only payments for quite a while, deferring those payments as much as possible. Actually, until November, we gave the same period that SBA did. And then if they were still having trouble, we would have delayed them again. So just trying to make sure that life was at least manageable for a lot of our borrowers in this program. So right away, we tried to educate ourselves about what was going on daily. In fact, I went back through all of the webinars that I sat on, and I know like you guys, it was just, I wish I retained half of what I watched during that time, because it was just crazy trying to educate yourself about everything. But we pretty quickly, between 314 and 423, we assisted 10 primary or major employers. And for us, that means primarily our manufacturers, logistics companies here in Johnson County. We had mainly questions around health measures, obviously ensuring whether they were considered essential. Remember when we were talking about that conversation? And then where to donate food. We had some employers that wanted to donate items and food. So we quickly tried to facilitate that as best we could. The 24 small business responses that we had just in that short period of time were primarily around what you might think: unemployment, the payroll protection program, which along with the lenders here in Johnson County, just knocked it out of the park. We exceeded here in Johnson County 2-1 what other counties are similar size and per capita were doing with regard to lending, PPP and EIDL. But it was because it was speed to lending, making sure that borrowers knew what the PPP program was and the EIDL program and what the nuances were, even though this crazy chaos of constantly changing rules and regulations was still kind of taking place. And so I remember I talked to one borrower no less, I think, than like 9 times in one day, because the answer kept changing. Every time I would say, well, I think it's this. And then SBA would call and be like, nope, that's not it. So it was looking back, I'm glad that's over. I don't think I want to do that much more. And then communities and nonprofits, providing assistance with other FFPRA and other regulations, tax consequences, things like that. The employer weekly conference calls were also very beneficial. And in fact, if there was one thing, well, there's many things I would have done differently, but one of the things I would have done differently was I would have kept doing these. We had a time frame where they were, we had a lot of attendance and there were a lot of good questions and dialogue and conversation, and then we kind of fell off. And then I thought, well, maybe this has run its course and we quit doing them. We should have kept doing the weekly calls. But then by that time, well, I don't know that it has the same urgency that we had back then, but I'd be interested in your opinion. I mean, you think we should? I'm happy to do so, but I wish we would have kept the momentum, going through that time. And you can see some of the things that we talked about on each call. The other thing was fighting misinformation. That was the biggest challenge, was fighting misinformation. And so we embarked on a Facebook campaign. We set up a hotline so people could call with questions, just one-off questions. We didn't count. We were just trying to get through the hotline calls. But, this process, and I can tell you some very sad stories that would disgust you even further, but this process was just fraught with just bad situations, you know, all the way around. And so trying to fight misinformation, make sure that borrowers and small business owners had the right information when they needed it. You know, everybody had a website. The problem was that website was really hard to keep up to date and keep, you know, with the right information because it was just constantly changing. But we did the best we could. Transformative responses between March 16th and May 4th. And so this category you can kind of see by industry and then also by type of assistance, kind of what people were asking. So this really is just a snapshot in time that we keep track of in our database. And so you can see primarily the questions that we addressed were from personal services. So these are like hairdressers, nail salons, places like that were shut down for a pretty extended period of time. And then primarily the responses or the type of assistance that they were asking for was labor, access to talent, making sure that they had a workforce, FFCRA, can you keep them working, all the rules related to HR issues during the pandemic. And so those were primarily the questions that we were fielding at the time. This represented over 180 counseling hours during that small window of time. And I can tell you through the hard work of our SBA lenders here in Johnson County, they just did, and all of the partners, like all the chambers of commerce and all the Main Street organizations and the cities, just did a great job of trying to get people the right word.
Out of curiosity, has the information on how whether or not the CARES funding, or how to prove that you don't have to pay it back, has that been clarified and like figured out yet? Because last night I heard people talk about it was.
From a tax consequences perspective?
Because at one point it was a grant, but if you didn't do it.
That was the idle one?
If you didn't document the usage of the money properly, and to make, because there are requirements to, with a certain percentage have to be for labor costs, certain percentage for keeping business. And
right, yeah.
But there was some question for a while, that was a thing that, like, if you were going to have to pay it back, and as recently as a couple of months ago, I think, there was still some question about whether or not they were going to require businesses to start paying that back. I'm just curious.
I think much of that has been worked out. So if you have somebody that's interested in talking to us, we can do that. And then if we don't know the answer, we'll try to find an expert that does, either CPA or somebody that's already figured all that out. Usually it's their lender. If it's an idle loan, that's an SBA direct loan. And so the lender, local lender isn't involved in that. If it's a PPP loan, and they, okay, then they applied for their forgiveness. That forgiveness has to be offset by the I loan if they also got an I loan. So it's a net result because you can't double dip on.
I didn't mean to.
Yeah, no, that's okay. But there's a lot of nuances, I guess, is what I would say in that question. And
for a while there was a lot of, like you're saying, misinformation.
Yes.
And contradictory information was coming out for a while. I was just curious if that had kind of been resolved.
Yeah, I think much of that has, Nolan. I think, but if you still have somebody that has some questions or concerns, we're happy to try to find them the right answer. So, I think one of the things that I think a lot of people think that if we're providing small business development services, it's just me and a laptop and a piece of paper. I guess, I don't know. But I can tell you the network of the resources that are available for the Small Business Development Center are vast. So we have when we were doing daily calls, we had upwards of 99 people that are providing counseling services and some expertise in some form or another that are with us. So it's not just me. There's a whole bunch of people behind me, that are providing expertise and services and things that I don't and shouldn't be counseling about. I don't have an expertise in QuickBooks, but I know who does. I don't have an expertise in, training for intellectual property, but I know who does, those kinds of connections. And all of these services are no cost because they're provided through the Small Business Development Association and easily accessible at any center. Even with technology, we're doing a lot of virtual client visits now. So it's easily accessible. So a wide variety of workshops and other free virtual training events are also available. So I just took a snapshot between October 1 and September 30th. We had 54 workshops with experts and experienced panelists from all across the state of Missouri and actually the U.S. And that represented over 556 attendees during that time. And so our largest attendance was the PPP forgiveness calculation that we had probably about a month ago. And we did 2 sessions of those, and those were very popular. So brief snapshot of the economy. So the first thing on the list is my disclaimer. So, there's a quote by Jonathan Burke. There is no pandemic playbook. We're writing it as kind of as we go along. So whatever I say here, please don't take as gospel and go invest or not invest or take it for what it's worth. I'm also going to provide some sites and sources that I use on a daily basis to kind of keep track of things in the economy. But we don't really know what the future holds, but we do stay well read. We do stay well connected to those people that do know maybe what the future holds. We read pretty religiously. We read the Chumera economics reports. We read the St. Louis Federal Reserve reports. We read the MU Extension Exceed program, which I'm going to cite some data for later. And then also the Missouri Chamber has just done a rock star job with Ted Abernathy and economics leadership company that he oversees. And he's just done a great job. So if you have a chance to catch any of those, and they're all free and they're virtual nowadays, so really you can get all the information that you would ever want in terms of the economics of the situation. So the volatility in the marketplace is also a real thing. For example, the game changers will be, when is the timing and acceptance of this vaccine going to take place? And so we've been doing some sales and use tax calculations with the county using applied projections from a lot of different sources for different NAICS codes that we have here in Johnson County, which would include Warrensburg, and applying those across the board. And it's been pretty interesting to see that what we've learned is that basically Johnson County, in terms of their sales and use tax, has a top 20 that has not changed significantly over the last 5 years in terms of those industry classifications. So those industry classifications, for example, would be like full service bars and restaurants, limited service, restaurants, all of those kinds of NAICS code categories. NAICS code, sorry, North America Industry Classification System, NAICS codes. So not much of that has changed. And so you can look at how the pandemic has affected those industries and apply those projection numbers and percentages to those categories and get a result. And so we've been doing a little bit of that with the county as we all try to figure out what this budget's going to look like next year. It's been interesting to kind of take a deep dive into that. So I talked about deal flow and announcements already, sales and use tax. So the other source of information has been the MU Extension Exceed program. And you can read these two. They're weekly snippets. They're little 2-page snippets on what's going on in the economy. And so recently, just to give you a little context, household spending dipped to its lowest ever, on April 1 across Missouri. And this is for all of Missouri, metro and non-metro alike. And then we started to come back up. We started to rise along about August 1st. We sort of plateaued. And then over the last 2 weeks, we've kind of done one of these numbers where we're starting to come back down again in terms of consumer spending. So what is causing that? I think a lot of people are getting scared again because the numbers for, those affected by COVID have started to come back up. And then the foot traffic for non-metro communities was the lowest it ever was on November 1st. And so if you talk to your small business owners on about November 1st, the foot traffic was null. There was none anywhere. Even here in Warrensburg, it was pretty dismal. And so that has since started to climb, but even then, we're still looking at a 5.9% decline since the 1st of November in consumer spending. And so we haven't recovered from that. So what's the future hold? Oh, I was going to talk a little bit more about what the future holds. Sorry, to go back one. Thanks. That's all right. So we talked about payroll protection program. So this isn't set in stone. So what's next? We talked about talent, remote work, and barriers. So all indications are that this isn't set in stone, it's not been voted on, but it looks like, according to the SBA, that there will be another round of payroll protection program loans. So we're gearing back up along with the lenders here, SBA lenders, to provide that service again. And it will be for small businesses with 300 or fewer employees. And they must have sustained at least a 30% revenue loss in any quarter of 2020. And so they need to be able to prove harm. If you remember in the PPP program the last time, we didn't have to prove harm. Remember, we just had to list our expenses. And so that was one of the things that made us sort of scratch our heads. But this time they're going to request that we prove harm, at least with regard to the businesses. Small C6 organizations, these are usually your local chambers of commerce, lobbying organizations, those are excluded from the list, but tourism offices, economic development offices that were not eligible for PPP during the last round will be in this round. And there's a myriad of other things. For example, perhaps they're thinking about a $300 weekly benefit for unemployment. You remember the $600 weekly benefit. This is a $300 weekly benefit, but I think it's only going to benefit the very low income. So I think they'll put a cap on that as well, earn income qualifier, as we say. So that's kind of what's next. Not been voted on, but that's kind of what we're thinking and hearing from our SBA friends. So 2021 for JCEDC. Thanks. You can move it now. Thanks, Harold. Yep. So what have we learned? What's the planning for pivots in 2021? Here's where we're focused on next year, and our budget reflects that. So we will be educating ourselves and our community leaders about virtual site, community, and employer visits. We're not going back to the old days where they're kicking the tires in person, turning over the rocks with their foot as they looked at a site or building. It's all going to be virtual. Even if the vaccine is widely adopted, site consultants are not going back to the way it was before. So we have to build that infrastructure that we need in order to market ourselves in the highest and best way. We're going to do some mock site consultant, virtual site, community, and employer visit training. So it'll be just like a regular project. You won't know you're just doing a mock project, but you'll be actually critiqued on how successful we are to pull off a virtual site, community, or employer visit. And so we're going to do that next year as well. Website and video enhancement. Obviously, our websites are good, and but they're not made for this virtual time that we're in with regard to site consultants. They want to see what they can see and all that they can see on a site or building at their desk. They don't want to get on a plane. They don't want to get in a car. So, we're going to have to really beef up our website and our virtual video enhancements for our sites and buildings product. Site readiness is ever more important. So again, with site consultants and other company real estate professionals only doing desk research, and you're going to get eliminated if you don't have that kind of infrastructure built in. You better be prepared for your site. And that includes all the environmental work, all of the survey work, and you better all have all of that up on a website somewhere so somebody can see it. We're still kind of on hold with regional and local talent initiatives, and if you have any ideas, I'm all ears about how we move forward with that. It is a big issue. There are 600 job openings within a 25-mile radius of Warrensburg. Our employers are screaming for help. And we have a lot of people that have a lot of barriers to that. And so we need to figure out what that looks like and get with the program pretty quickly. Obviously, continued staff training, we're going to continue to do. We're going to streamline the SBDC client experience. I think just because it feels clunky. You know, we need to figure out a better way of onboarding, making sure they get the services that they need when they need them, and be able to do that in a streamlined fashion. We did sign a contract with EDA through Pioneer Trails Regional Planning Commission, and we're going to also do a whole new virtual business retention and expansion program. And that is where we do the visits, but they're going to be done in a virtual format. Obviously, I'd like to keep the in-person ones, and we will do so when we can, but the virtual ones have to be also built so that people have that option. All right. Again, thank you for your time. You know who we are. Christina Langham came on in May. She's our video photographer, communications coordinator, just a rock star. We're so glad to have her on board. Amy, you know, me, you know, I'm happy to answer any questions if you have them. I know I covered a lot, and I apologize, but I have to come more often, I guess.
Quarterly brief.
Yeah, I'm sorry, guys. I try to be concise and get through it all quickly. So, questions, concerns?
Thank you again.
Thank you. Thank you for all you do. We very much appreciate your leadership and all of your efforts. And if you have any questions, feel free to send me an email. I have my contact information on the last slide. Happy to answer any questions. You know, if you want to just give me a call or send me a note. So thank you.
All right, first readings. Ordinance authorizing the city manager and city clerk to execute a master agreement for Software and Environmental Systems Research Institute Incorporated.
Mr. Mayor and City Council, this is an ordinance that we're bringing forward because there really is only one vendor for this software, and per our purchasing policies, any sole source agreement would have to come to you for approval, even if it is included in the budget. This was included in your budget that was adopted a few months ago. This is the software purchase that will enable us to scale up our GIS system and allow more of our city staff to use that at their desktops and on their laptops and make it more of a management tool rather than just a tool where we print paper maps every so often. It will change the look of our GIS map online. Over the next year, we will do that through this software directly on the Esri ArcGIS online website. We will host that there as opposed through Midland, the third-party vendor we're currently using. So that interface will change and how it looks on the website will change. That will probably happen closer to April or May of next year. And then by the end of this fiscal year, we will start to end our relationship with Midland and move fully into the Esri environment, online environment. We will also have it deployed on our servers, and that is a second step that we will go out to bid on for that contractor to deploy that on our servers. And so there will be an RFP coming out soon for that, and we will bid that through a formal process. This software is only available through Esri, And so there is not a way to bid this out really. And so we are asking permission to enter into this agreement and start to bring this more in-house. Be happy to answer any questions.
Questions? All right. Ordinance authorizing the city manager and city clerk to execute a contract with SAK Construction LLC for the 2021 sanitary sewer main lining project for the city of Warrensburg.
Yeah, good evening, Mayor and City Council. This is our annual influent infiltration lining project. In the past, we have dedicated approximately 100,000 to lining sewer mains and then 50,000 for manhole rehabilitation. We've been able to take advantage of some great pricing over the last several years, and we are ahead of schedule on manhole rehabilitation. So we would like to move forward with doing more lining of sewer mains. So we are bringing forward a recommendation for approximately 6,000 linear feet. This would be in the Broadview Addition subdivision, as well as between Maple Street and North Holden, a section on East Market, and then a couple sections along East and West Colton Street. The lowest bid was SAK. We received 4. We have had experience with SAK in the past. They have done the lining project for us for the last couple of years. So our recommendation would be to move forward with them. Are there any questions?
What kind of percentage have we made progress? I mean, I know 6,000 feet sounds like a lot.
Yeah, so what we're doing is we're trying to line all of the older areas.
I know we have miles and miles of pipe to get through. I'm just curious if we really intend to yet.
Yeah, I do think we are making pretty good progress. I would have to go back and pull see how many years we've been doing this and see what we need to move, what total is and what percentage we've been able to do over the last several years. I know this has been in the budget for probably 6-7 years now.
So I know when we started this, we did an assessment of the pipes. Is there a plan to help us prioritize? Is there a plan to do a new assessment at any point?
Yeah, so actually one of the projects that we've been working on is actually getting our sewer mains along with our manholes and actually getting those digitized. You guys just heard Barb present on Esri, which is a mapping system. And so actually what we would like to do is to be able to get all of our sewer information off of paper map, out of Excel spreadsheets and into a GIS layer. With that GIS layer, we will be able to go in and run some models to be able to determine, for example, if there is one manhole that needs to be rehabilitated and it only affects, let's say, 2 customers, then that might be something that has a lower prioritization than a manhole that needs to be fixed that could potentially affect 30 homeowners. So yes, we are working on getting that digitized, working with Barb and her group to get Esri going, as well as working on getting some modeling in to see and actually be able to bring that forward to you all in data.
Thank you. An ordinance approving a filing of a tax lien on a property located at 1102D Pine Court for the purpose of abating a public nuisance.
Mr. Mayor and City Council, earlier this year, we had 2 properties that were mowed through the city's abatement process. That these are the ordinances then that would place those liens against the property to be collected at a point in the future when they sell. I think we tried to keep you apprised of that through the city manager's report as we were going through that process. This is a case where both of the owners were unable to be located and completely unresponsive. So the city had a civil hearing process and had them mowed. it can take many years for these to be paid back to the city. We did 2 weeks ago have one that went up for sale that we had done this process in 2008 and had that lien recorded in 2008, and it was paid off as a part of that property selling a few weeks ago. So we will record these ordinances at the courthouse when they are approved by council and wait to recoup those funds in the future. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
All right. Ordinance approving and filing a tax lien on the property located at 340 Hawthorne Boulevard for the purpose of abating in public use. Do you have anything on that one, Barbara?
No, same situation as before. We had that mowed, and I believe this one they sprayed as well to try to keep those weeds back as long as possible, as it is a more expensive enterprise to mow a commercial property. We hope that will not have to be the case next summer.
That's the front portion of the old
Yeah, that is the lot that is still owned by Omar Dewan, Lot 4B. It is the north end of the parking lot, essentially, and so it is some of the islands as well as that area along the sidewalk, the kind of mounded up area.
Any questions? All right. First and second reading. An ordinance authorizing the city manager and city clerk to execute documents with Warrensburg Animal Rescue Incorporated in the county of Johnson related to cooperative operations of an animal shelter.
It's up to you guys, but we've been talking about this for several months. We've come to agreement, even up to discussion today. I did email out to you the final versions of the agreement earlier today, so more recent than even what's included in the packet here. So a lot of months of hard work from all parties involved, especially grateful to Mayor Jacobs and Councilmember Lund for their hard work on this over the last several months. Staff recommends approval.
Let's do it before they change something.
Dave said Bill, there's like a reading by time.
Brooks,
Yes.
Holmberg,
Yes.
Lund,
Yes.
Kushner,
Yes.
Jacob.
Yes.
This is an ordinance authorizing the city manager and city clerk to execute documents with Warrensburg Animal Rescue Incorporated in the county of Johnson related to cooperative operations of an animal shelter. This is for adoption or rejection. Brooks,
Yes.
Holmberg,
Yes.
Lund,
Yes.
Kushner,
Yes.
Jacob.
Yes. Let's see here, other business. Midwest Pool Management Contract Extension. Danielle. You want to-
She is. You guys hear me okay? Mayor and City Council, as you know, Midwest Pool Management manages the Indoor Aquatic Center and Nassau Aquatic Center and has since 2009. Most recently, we went out for bid in 2017 after the 2009 contract expired. We had 3 bidders, and out of those, Midwest Pool Management was the best candidate, so we decided to go with them again. We are now at the end of the initial 3-year contract. Our current contract does have a 3-year extension option. We would like to exercise that extension. You can see in the information provided that the biggest change is the salary fee. As you know, minimum wage is going up and continually until 2024. And so that is included in these numbers. The management fee has stayed within about 1% to 2%. The last will be 6 years of the contract. So I feel very confident about that. Are there any questions or any concerns with the extension?
Oh, sounds like everybody's content. All right. Like guess they'll, they do that themselves, or they present that to us, contract later?
The contract's included in your packet.
Yeah, so this,
Oh, okay,
yeah,
okay.
this is one of those situations where it's a contract exceeding 50,000, so it's just ratification by the council. So by simple.
Okay.
So we did that already.
Brooks,
Yes.
Holmberg,
Yes.
Lund,
Yes.
Fishner,
Yes.
Jacobs.
Yes. A resolution of the council of the city of Warrensburg accepting a proposal prepared by Mike Keith Insurance for property liability and cyber insurance for 2020.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, and members of City Council. The city's property and liability and cyber insurance is set to expire on January 1st, 2021. A renewal quote was put together by Mike Keith Insurance, and it shows on one of your copy of the 21-22 City of Warrensburg premium comparison chart that's in your packet. It shows a total increase of 6.4% over last year, or $21,505 for all premiums. The breakdown for this year, there was a $9,610 increase for general liability, a $12 increase in the employee benefits liability, a $1,032 increase in public official liability. There was no change in the law enforcement liability, an $8,914 increase in property coverages, and $1,218 increase in inland marine, along with a $7,307 increase in the auto premium, an $80 increase in the optional terrorism, and $4,644 decrease for various endorsements. And then, of course, we have a separate fire pack policy for all of the fire coverages that we have with fire trucks and property. And that did increase $3,293. And then we also experienced a $900 increase in the excess cyber liability policy that we had. The fiscal impact on these, the property and liability renewal quote, the total is $310,952. The fire pack renewal quote, $39,298. And the cyber insurance renewal quote for $5,500. The total fiscal impact of this is $355,750. And that number is just a little bit higher than what we budgeted, but pretty close. What we budgeted was $354,003. The staff recommends approval of this resolution as submitted. If you have any questions regarding this, I'd be happy to answer any of those if I can. If not, I know Mike Keith, I think, is available online for questions as well.
Is this in line with what the industry is?
In all actuality, we are receiving one of the lower increases. What you're seeing in the area. In visiting with Mike, he said he saw anywhere up to 12 to 15% increases for other city packages that he is having. Now, some of this was rate increases that the companies take, but I will say this: we did have several items that changed from last year. For example, in the property coverages, we did amend the value for our UV system, one of the wastewater treatment plants, up to almost $600,000 because of the UV project. And we will have another one of those coming up here shortly that will be completed as well that we'll need to make a change to. But we also added, several vehicles. We added two 2020 Ford Explorers. We had two Ford F-550 trucks with plows and sanders that were purchased. There were some increases over year to year just because of that as well.
Okay.
Is this insurance for the 2020 year or 2021?
This is for 2021
Okay,
here.
because the resolution says 2020, so. Just wanted to point that out. So this will provide your insurance coverage through December 2021.
Yes.
So do you need to make a motion to amend that or?
Typo.
Yeah, I think it'll be fine.
Move to approve? Unless there's someone's got something.
No one can
Yeah.
Brooks,
Yes.
Holmberg,
Yes.
Lund,
Yes.
Kishner,
Yes.
Jacobs.
Yes. All right, city manager recruiting RFIP.
So council directed me to prepare an RFP so that you can use a recruiting firm. I'll find a replacement with my resignation. So that's what's on the agenda for you now. As a deadline of response by January 22nd, at which point the first meeting in, I'm trying to think, hopefully maybe that second meeting of January or the first meeting in February, you'd be able to come together and approve that, put it out. And then you'd work with your recruiter that you've selected on a timeline for creating the profile, conducting the interview process, selecting a candidate, and those types of things.
Move to approve?
Brooks,
Yes.
Holmberg,
Yes.
Lund,
Yes.
Kishner,
Yes.
Jacobs.
Yes. Appointment of city representation to boards.
With my resignation, there are several boards that I sit on that you guys have appointed me to specifically. That in order for representation of the city to continue in that capacity, the council needs to take action for those appointments. So that would be the JCEDC board, Pioneer Trails Regional Planning Commission, and others that I have outlined there in the memo. And so I'm recommending that since you've already appointed Danielle Doolin as your interim city manager, that she be appointed to these boards in the interim until you fill the city manager position, and then you can appoint them to be on these boards and commissions.
Move to approve.
Brooks,
Yes.
Holmberg,
Yes.
Lund,
Yes.
Kishner,
Yes.
Jacobs.
Yes. Geo bond ballot discussion.
Marcelle's in here. I'll turn it over to her to talk about where we're at with this process.
So we have a representative from Piper Jaffray as our financial advisor available via Zoom to kind of outline the processes as we bring forward the ballot language that will be need to be approved in January. So that is slated for your first reading, the first meeting in January and second reading. Actually, I will ask that we do first and second reading because we don't know what the weather's going to be and if we'll have an actual meeting. Although with the virtual pieces, that might be possible, but the ratification has to be certified to the county clerk by January the 26th for anything to go on the ballot. So
Marcella, do you have a name of the individual? We have 16 folks online.
I want to say Brad. That's what I was looking for, and I apologize.
It's okay.
Gilmore Bill or Piper Jim?
It's normally Todd Goffey, but he wasn't available.
It's not Matt Courtney, is it?
Matt Courtney?
Matt.
Matt, yeah, that's what I was saying.
Sorry.
It's okay. Matt, you are still muted.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Great. Sure. So I got kicked off there as you were adding me to a participant. So Marcella, if you could just kind of run through the last minute or so.
So Matt, I was just saying that we would most likely ask for first and second reading at the first meeting in January.
based on the fact that we weren't sure that we could have that second meeting, and that certification for the ballot language has to be to the county clerk no later than January the 26th. And then that she would basically outline our process on what the council would kind of expect to see, or some options that they need to think about and give us direction for.
Sure. So yeah, I guess I'll maybe back up here. So back in 2017, when the city voted the general obligation bonds that you currently have outstanding, there were two pieces to that bond election. One was for fire purposes and the other was for street purposes. And the fire purposes were structured with a 5-year final maturity. And the street portion was structured with a 10-year prior maturity. So we're getting close here to that initial 5 years. So the city has the opportunity to layer in more bonds now that some of those prior bonds have been paid off, while still maintaining the same debt service levy. So we've kind of discussed with city staff kind of two options for no tax levy increase bond elections. One would be approximately 17 million that could be paid off over 20 years. That would be issued in two pieces, kind of $4 million in 2021 and 13 million in 2022. And that would allow you to stay no tax levy increase and continuing to tax real estate only for debt service. So leaving that tax off of personal property. So that's one option. And then there's another higher dollar option if you were to keep the levy at its current level, but expand it to cover personal property as well. And that available dollar amount would be about 21.5 million. But I guess as far as process goes from here, Marcella outlined the idea of 2 readings at the first January meeting. We think that's a good idea just because that second January meeting is so tight to the county filing deadline that, in January, there can always be snow or, with COVID now, all sorts of potential hiccups that could happen. So doing both readings at the January meeting may make sense, but that is, of course, the council's choice, if you all are comfortable with that or not. And I guess with that, for one thing that will need to be decided upon is ballot language. So I know you guys have numerous times in the past discussed like project ideas you all might want to include. So I guess with that, maybe I'll see if I've covered enough ground here for if you guys have any questions to just let me know.
Matt, can you talk a little bit about where we're at with bonding capacity as far as how much debt we can or cannot issue and the long-term impacts of that the council needs to consider?
Sure. So I don't have the full state legal capacity in front of me, but let me pull up one item here. One second.
My understanding was if they leave it on real property only for the $17 million issue, there's still some room left in case another bond issue needs to be considered by the community in the future. There is a little bit of wiggle room there, but if they apply it to both real property and personal property and do the full 21 million, that pretty much exhausts the bonding capacity of the city for the next 20 years until other debts come off. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think you are correct in that. Yeah, if the city is to choose the full 21.5 million and bumping up the 59 cent, but bumping that 59 cent debt service levy to cover real property as well, yeah, that would pretty much exhaust the city's ability to issue any additional bonds without a tax levy increase for quite a while. I don't know if it'd be the full 20 years, but it'd be a pretty big chunk of that.
So by adding real property, we're going from 17 to 21. Not adding another 21, correct?
Correct. It'd be additional 4.5 million approximately in revenue that you could use towards projects.
And the levy that's rolling off in 5 years, what could that potentially produce if it was re-up?
Well, with the 17 million, that's where you're talking about doing the 2 issuances.
So it's kind of doing them both now, just not.
You would do what you have in free capacity now, and then once that rolls off, you would do the additional. It would not result in a tax increase.
Yeah, and the reason that the city couldn't issue all of that at once is there wouldn't be enough revenue generated and fund balance available in the debt service fund to pay all of the interest and principal on both the old and new bonds in 2022. But once the final payment is made on the fire portion of the 2017 bonds in 2022, the Series 2017 debt service goes down quite a bit. That allows room to pay debt service on the rest of that bond election that's voted in 21. So, and I may not have explained that very well. So you can vote 17 million and issue it in a number of series of bonds over time if the city wishes. So what we had kind of modeled was the city voting 17 and issuing, of course I just lost that here, and issuing 4 million of it in 2021, then the rest of it in 2022 to coincide with when that fire debt rolls off.
What other debt do we have on the horizon for falling off in the next 20 years? Like, do we have a schedule where we have that figured out?
We do have a schedule, but I don't have it in front of me. Marcella, do you know any of those?
Look and see if it's in the financial report.
They're in your budget documents, in your audit reports. Those debt schedules are all included in there, but I don't have them memorized.
So in the September 30th, 2019 financial reports, it shows debt out to 2030. And some of that is in your enterprise fund for the wastewater treatment plant money. I know the COPs run until 2027 and 2029.
The only general obligation bonds that I'm aware of were the 2 that were approved in 2017.
Right.
So we have one that falls off next year,
2022.
2022. We have something that falls off in
2027.
There's 2030 that I heard, or?
Yes, there's a 2030.
And something falls off.
2030 might be the one that was the city hall upgrade and the police department and those.
And that's tied to the half-cent sales tax.
Yeah.
The only thing that's tied to property tax levy is the GO bonds. The other debt is either associated to user fees through the wastewater treatment or the half-cent sales tax. And the parks.
So how do we want to go about the process, specifically talking about the GO bonds? Do we want to have a work session where we can kind of lay everything out and start arm wrestling and dragging stuff over? Hey, we want to include this street project but not that street project. Is there a way to do that, as well as get the numbers for bonding capacity for 5 years, 10 years, and 20 years, just so we kind of know what all the options are, including real property and personal property, just so we can kind of everything a la carte segregated, so we can do what if scenarios. Maybe kind of flow charts and stuff on the wall somewhere that we can.
Well, I think we definitely need a work session, because I know we need to do this, but I'm not prepared to say how to do it yet.
So there's going to be a lot of discussion as far as which projects to include and which ones.
And I'm really nervous, I suppose is the best word, about putting it as a first and second reading. This is a big issue that I feel like we need to make sure there's a opportunity for the community to have some input. Otherwise, if we're gonna go out there and say, we're asking, because I know it's going on the ballot, but, if we vote on it, it's not going to go into effect. But I think giving the community some opportunity to give us some feedback before we pull the trigger. I think it's the right thing to do, and I think
always people.
Right. I think, if we're doing a work session, though, the work session is public, correct? So they can attend any of that. We can put a Zoom link to it. They're welcome to attend any of that. I understand what you're saying, but I think I agree completely with the timeline we're dealing with, because we're talking crunching and we're talking January.
So then, if someone comes and says, well, why didn't you start working on this a month earlier? What's our response? Why didn't we have this?
This is a month earlier.
So
This is a month early.
We've been talking about this issue
yeah,
for
we've been talking about
a couple
it for a while,
years now.
But why couldn't we have moved the ordinance readings forward a meeting? So have the ordinance ready to have its first reading this week.
The intent was to have it ready overnight, but with staff out with COVID and some of those other things and quarantine, we didn't have the ability to keep all this moving like we wanted to.
Well, that, one of the things I think as council, because I'm comfortable with one reading, and because we're discussing it tonight, the other is the document that staff made a few months ago, I've actually sent to the chamber. You and I spoke with the chamber director, Main Street. So our job frequently is to put out and go. So I believe we've had adequate time for first and second reading. I'm comfortable having first and second reading the first time in January. I think that a work session this week would be healthy. Myself, I've got the list up and I've mulled it over a bit and we've talked amongst ourselves of what my priorities are, what I think people will give me back.
I guess what I'm trying to say is, without having, yes, we've talked about it, we didn't have the language for people to review. Yeah, but because we don't have the language, we haven't articulated it.
But they won't change the language on the ballot, it'll be the ballot.
They're going to get an opportunity to say yes or no. And
I'm sorry,
they're going to get an opportunity to say yes or no when they show up to vote. And so it's not.
And typically, your ballot language is going to be pretty general, right? And so, issuing $17 million for street improvements, and that's what's going to be on the ballot. And staff and council are going to have, between January and April, are going to have to talk about what does that mean, right? And so you'll have that period, because regardless of what project you're putting on there, it's a street. So I wouldn't recommend that the ballot language say that we're replacing the McGuire Bridge, right? It's going to be for road projects, for replacement of infrastructure, installation of new infrastructure for roads and bridges within the corporate limits of the city. You're not going to get specific in outlining specific projects with your ballot language.
So maybe I misunderstood what we needed to do. I was under the impression that we needed to have in the ballot measure more or less a laundry list of what that.
Not for the ballot itself. Now, leading up to the ballot, as the public is asking questions, what am I voting on? You can provide that information of this is our plan of investing that money in the infrastructure of the city should this be approved.
Right, now I'm a little bit better now that I understand.
The key thing for me is that you need to understand that you have a limit on what you can do. Of course, this is a limit without any tax increase. You can potentially discuss putting something on the ballot that approves a tax increase. Some of the other ballot language you need to discuss was the council directed staff to prepare language with regards to a public safety tax. Right, so that's another piece. The issue is if you want to keep taxes where they're at now and not increase them, you only have so much money, and you have to prioritize. Is it roads? Is it a bridge? Is it the third fire station? What is that? Because with $17 million, you're not going to have enough to do all of those. right? With 17 million, you may be able to get McGuire Bridge done and resurfacing of McGuire. That's it. And then you're going to have to wait 20 years before you can do the next thing, which includes Fire Station 3, any other significant road projects. And 20 years is a long time. So those are the things that I want to make sure you guys understood as you're going through this process of what those impacts are and why it's important to prioritize. Now, if you guys agree to put a public safety tax on, some of that funding would be a new tax increase. You could bond off of that. You could use that to build the Fire Station 3, if that's what the community decides you want to do. But I'd like to remind the council and the community, the cheap part is building the building. The expensive part is staffing it and equipping it, right? So if you build a third fire station, you're talking about a whole nother crew within the fire department. You're going to need apparatus for them. Pumper, last pumper we bought was probably close to $600,000. And that's just one piece of equipment.
But you need equipment to run
It's usually advisable, yeah.
I thought they did lots of floors.
Yeah, more SCBAs and all those types of things. And so building the building is really the cheap part. Right. And so those are things that the council and the community need to consider as they go forward and make these decisions with regards to prioritization.
To make sure that we have, that extra padded, between meetings and stuff, not getting hit by weather and stuff. We could always do a Zoom council meeting on the 28th. I know we did not plan on having a meeting at that time. I know a lot of people will be traveling, but if we did it via Zoom, it might be a way to get that first reading in for Nolan, and then the second reading would be an opportunity.
I know on the 38th, the first meeting, 30,000 feet.
The what?
I'll be at like 30,000 feet
on the 28th.
On the 28th, yeah.
My recommendation would be is that you try to figure out a way to do it over 2 separate meetings. I do think with it being a ballot issue, you want to try and provide that transparency. So if you have to have a special meeting, even in January, maybe you do your regularly scheduled meeting the first meeting, and then you follow that up the next week with a special meeting to do the second reading. You can do that however you want. I would also recommend that based off of my years of being here, for what that's worth, I would keep the road bond issue simple. We had a plan that the council put into place that we would get that approved and then come back and ask the community to keep paying that for the next 20 years. So I would keep it at that, not do a tax increase with regards to that. Keep that at the same. I would also not mix in the personal property tax into that mix. One, I think you're going to bring in a whole nother political hot potato with it. But two is, I think you need to leave yourself a little bit of cushion in case an emergency comes up over the next 20 years, that you have at least $4.5 million there that you can go ask the public for without increasing taxes any further. So those are just some of my recommendations going forward for you to consider. Obviously, the public safety tax is a completely different ballgame. That would be an increase in tax if the voters approve it, supporting specifically your public safety, your police and fire departments. That could potentially provide some relief off the general fund, and could do some of these projects. And hopefully get us into a better a vehicle replacement program for police cars and fire apparatus and those types of things. There is a need for that, but those are things that you need to talk about and figure out.
As far as the public safety tax, would that be a later bond or not bond, but a later on a later budget or not budget, later?
The last conversation I recall having with council, you directed staff to go back and prepare bond language for a road tax extension and a property tax, or not a property, a public safety tax increase to be on the ballot. You're going to have 2 issues on the ballot this next spring.
Okay.
One was extending the geo bonding for road infrastructure, and the second one was a new tax for public safety, if I recall that conversation correctly.
So does that, so you fit in another meeting between now and then?
I'm out of town this week, and I'll be back in town on Monday night. I'm available in town after that. And then I can do a Zoom meeting while I'm out of town.
Yeah, any day, I'm traveling on the 28th. That from the 28th to the 13th, I can do Zoom meetings, but after the 13th, I'll be back in town. So on the 14th and later, I'll be back in town theoretically, if the world's not locked down again.
So you want to do a work session on the 29th? That'd be a Tuesday. You shouldn't be flying that day, right?
Yeah, I should. I hope. God, I hope. When we flew United, it was like a 2-day affair for a 6-hour flight.
Yeah, I'm available till 6 p.m. on the 29th. Anything before 6 p.m.
And then do we want to try and bring in another council meeting, via Zoom, like on January 4th, or when do we want to do a special meeting?
Well, your first council meeting would be the 11th. Right?
January 11th.
So you could do the 18th.
You want to do it?
It's up to you guys.
There's planning is only January 4th, so not that we can't do it before that, but
Right.
If there's anything even on planning, it's only January 4th.
What time would we do the 29th? Like 6, or sorry, 7 or 8 good time?
I can't do 7 on the 29th. I've got to be done by 6 p.m.
Okay, so
Do 4 o'clock.
28th, I'm free, I'm good. 30th, I'm good.
Will 4 p.m. on the 29th work?
That should be fine.
I can do that. Theoretically, yes.
Good by me too.
Yeah.
Harold, there will be court in that room on the 29th. They generally wrap up around 3:30 or so if they go that long.
Do 4:30? Yeah. And so if I understand correctly, you guys wanted just a recap of the current bonds and when they expire and come off, and then the potential revenue projections that can be generated, 5, 10, 20-year timeframe.
Each item and a price tag next to it, so that because we need to go from dreaming at 30 million and whittle that down to what we can actually afford.
Okay.
So we're deciding 4:30 on the 29th?
Initially, correct.
Either in person or via Zoom, yeah.
And then do we want to go ahead and try to schedule, are we going to try to schedule another meeting in January or?
Yeah, they haven't gone that far yet. They're trying to determine
I have
when they want to do that.
meeting starts at 4:30 on the 29th.
Yep.
And then
Squeezing in the council meeting early January.
Just want to do them back to back, the 4th and the 11th.
I'm good anytime on the 4th, assuming we don't have planning and zoning.
So if we do, it'll be at 5:30.
Right.
And we'll be done. So if we just did normal 7 o'clock meeting on the 4th.
Of course, that's assuming that between the 29th and the 4th, that bond counsel can turn around and get all the paperwork done that you need,
Chance of that happening pretty soon.
especially with the holiday there in the middle of it. So I would recommend you do it the 11th and the 18th.
and we'll do it at the regular time on the.
That's Martin Luther King's birthday, holiday. The 18th is a holiday.
So it would be the
It doesn't
Tuesday.
matter to me, but I'm sure you guys go over the
Is that a
holiday.
paid holiday for you guys?
Yeah.
I can't remember.
Yes,
So you need to do the
Okay.
19th?
already checked this out.
19th?
No, I just got done by 6.
Okay.
It's bowling night, man.
Other than the stand.
What time on the 19th then?
So we are agreeing. Hold on, do we move it from the 11th to the 12th? No.
You'll have your regular meeting on the 11th. That'll be your first reading. And then we've talked about doing a special meeting on the 19th for the second reading. And that should be a quick meeting because that's probably the only thing on the agenda, because you'll have your next regular meeting the week after that.
Okay, so the 19th and at what time?
Will 4:30 give you enough time?
1:30 should be fine.
And I'll send an email out with all these dates as well.
I'm sorry, quick question. The meeting on the 29th of December, what is the purpose of that one?
That's the work session, so they can get some updates with regards to what the bonding is and what the revenues can be over a 5, 10, 20-year period,
Okay.
what those options are, so they can nail down what they need to do, so they can give direction to bond council to prepare the ballot language
Okay.
for ordinances to be approved at the 2 meetings in January.
Okay.
Yep.
But there is no meeting on, city council meeting on the 20th.
Correct. Typically, you only have one council meeting in the months of November and December.
So we're going to be meeting the 4th or the 11th of January,
The 19th.
the 19th, and the 25th.
Correct.
You get paid overtime for that.
Yep.
At your time and a half at your current rate.
3 meetings.
Carl, to expand a little bit on your question is, staff presented us, and it's on the website, I believe September, last September, of different community infrastructure projects. If you go down through it, for instance, the bridge is $17 million, the fire station's this much. There's some other, McGuire interchange or street with stormwater is 26 million. So what you have is we have to decide if it's a 5-year, 10-year, 15, 20-year, what we want to do. And then of this list of things that need to be done, we can't buy them all. So it's a group. What's it look like? How much do we want to ask the community for? So it would be a really valuable session for the community to attend so that everybody kind of gets on board with us on where we're headed and we don't get bought into the, well, nobody knew sort of concept. So, and there's a really good presentation out that several of us have been handing to different key community groups. Just try and get that info out. So it'd be kind of cool to have folks can.
I agree, I just wanted to get clarification on it.
It also encourages the council and the community to continue to remember the community survey results. That's a very good citizen input tool to help you prioritize these decisions. And both the results of both of those surveys are available on the website as well.
All right. Good. No plan? Great. All right. Grants to the council not listed on the agenda.
We don't know who you are, but just say who you are, so Cindy can.
Members of the council and those who are listening tonight, my name is Olivia Bloom, and I'm the Vice President of Warrensburg Animal Rescue. 2020 has been, well, yet a year to remember, to put it politely. Shortly after the pandemic arose, people stepped up and helped clear out animal shelters nationwide. No one wanted those poor animals to suffer alone, and they graciously welcomed new family members into their home. When the sad news of a potential closure came about for our shelter here in Warrensburg, Missouri, groups from all across Missouri and Kansas stepped up to our aid. The shelter staff worked countless tiring, long hours to ensure that no animal would be left behind when the closure came. But while the shelter staff was working hard, there was a different group of individuals brainstorming and thinking of how we could come up with a solution to the problem. And our plan was to save our shelter. We saw what the community thought of a potential closure, and we heard the community's bark loud and clear. We were there and the people flooded the shelter in the following days and weeks, and we asked of ways that they could help. We read the Facebook posts and saw how many people truly wanted an animal shelter. We saw how important it was for our community to save this shelter. From the outside looking in, we saw love, passion, dedication like we've never seen before, and it truly gave us a glimmer of hope in some very dark times. Warrensburg Animal Rescue was assembled with individuals from all different backgrounds and completely on a volunteer basis. We somehow found the time to collaborate with the most incredible and dedicated animal advocate this community has ever seen, Ms. Kayla Frank. We took on the challenge because we wanted to be the voice for the community and show respect for animal welfare and be the voice for those who cannot speak. After all, how could the town of Missouri's historical dog, Old Drum, not have its own animal shelter? Over the past few months, we have worked closely with the city of Warrensburg and Johnson County to come to an agreement for the future of our shelter. This would not be possible without the riveting support of our community. We are forever grateful for the support of our community and very thankful to the Warrensburg City Council as well as the Johnson County Commissioners for all their hard work to keep the shelter alive. Our relationship is based off of give and take, and we're very thankful for all that has been given in this relationship. With the passing of this contract, Warrensburg Animal Rescue would operate Old Drum and Friends Animal Shelter. We truly look forward to this new chapter in history and look forward to open communication between the city of Warrensburg and Johnson County. We look forward to providing services not only to this wonderful town, but also to unincorporated areas of Johnson County. We look forward to supporting our community that supported us when we needed it the most. But most of all, we look forward to providing a warm, safe, and enjoyable atmosphere for those furry friends when they need it the most. We wanted to formally thank Council for all of your hard work from the bottom of our hearts. Thank you.
Dr. Neves.
I think this group just wanted to say a special thank you to Harold Stewart, because with his assistance, this and knowledge of nonprofits and the local laws of the area was a tremendous help in getting this pushed through. Also, we would like to thank Brian Jacobs and Casey Lund for their enthusiastic support and for their meetings and all their positive input. And I think you fellas all deserve a good hand. Thank you.
All right. Let's see here. Mayor appointments. I think we finally got him to commit to something there. So I'm going to appoint Carla Bentley to the Park Board. Okay. And then you run for council, and when we'll figure that one out at that point in time.
Yeah. It'll work itself out.
Yeah, it will.
Yeah.
Just happen to be you taking my seat, and it'll work out. Yep. All right.
I moved to approve, but I do want to make sure that, in this case, with our work with the Parks Board, there's a meeting that needs to be had between the city manager, maybe liaison, and Park Board member for that agreement. And I want to make sure going forward we're doing that. So I definitely move to approve, but I want to make sure that we give the new board member and stuff that we're at the start. Consistently, I think that board members and others, we don't really educate what the goals, the relationship, what the position means. So we get good people and then we have issues. So I definitely would have moved to approve, but I wanted to add that caveat.
For doctrinal rejection, Brooks,
Yes.
Holmberg,
Yes.
Lund,
Yes.
Fisher,
Yes.
Jacob.
Yes. This thing matters to the mayor and city council. I also want to express my thank you to everybody that was involved. And myself, Laura worked a bunch. Harold and we did everything. Stacy getting with the commissioners and getting that page rolling. You know, Doug had to send us the bill, but he worked the weekend. So I want to thank you for working this weekend. You know, and all the other members who are, you know, were out there talking to everybody and getting this done. I can't tell you how grateful I am. Well, I guess at 9 o'clock tomorrow morning, we'll finally be done. So I do want to thank everybody for that. And then I also got a letter from Darren Powell, and he's he's a Reese 2020 graduate, and was thanking the council for letting them be involved in the piano painting. So I think that Harold and you were pretty much the guys involved in getting those out there. So they do look great. We have a plan on when those are going to get picked up in the winter time.
They're already gone.
Oh, are they?
Mhm.
Okay.
It was recent.
COVID, I haven't been out much. You know?
That's all right, good.
But yeah, that's all I got.
Anything? I just want to reiterate what Brian said, and thanks to War and the community. I hinted at what has come to culmination back in August 24th, the second meeting in August. Did not mention names of the commissioners and stuff at that time because of some heat that we wanted to keep directed at some of us rather than to them, because the most important thing, in my opinion, for saving the shelter is the ballot measure. So the work is just starting, making sure that the ballot measure that hopefully tomorrow at 9 a.m. the commissioners will sign and approve. But we started talking to them about that August 11th. August 24th, we had already put in $100,000 into the budget, and it was approved that night to be brought forward and to kind of earmark that. However, we did not share, and so that was unfortunate that we weren't able to share, but we were trying to make sure that we had a good opportunity for the ballot measure. And so making sure that we all show up in April is a way that we get an actual better funded, a better shelter, earmarked funds that can never be removed from, it's not in a general fund that can be used for other things as city budgets and county budgets get constrained. It will be earmarked for the shelter forever, and it's going to be higher. It's going to be in the $400,000 range, not in the $300,000 range that it is now. So ultimately, we get a better shelter if we all show up together and band together for the April ballot, as well as a still strong and competitive city that still has an eye on economic development and has extra room in their budget to try and focus on some of those items to help get ahead of this expense curve that is increasing so quickly, as we saw in some of the insurance estimates and stuff that came out tonight. So just thanks for everybody's support and for working hard, but it's just starting. Making sure that this ballot measure passes is the way that we seal the deal for a better shelter forever in the future. So thanks to everybody for your support.
I'll echo the same accolades. There's a lot of people behind the scenes. And with the big picture in sight, we were able to come to fix everything. So again, like Casey said, the big deal is go for April. We need to push that all together as a unified front now. Also want to thank Harold too for his 5 years of service with us, and now people will really know that my pulled pork is better than his.
I won't be here to compete with you anymore.
Coffee with Council, January 9th, the chamber is hosting that in 11. They've actually created an event. And so if we have 2 council members that would be willing to come,
I'll be one. I can be one.
Can I go? I can go too. What's the date? January 9th. Saturday. Well, the 2 of you go, then that's 2. Are you going to go?
well, I wasn't. I was going to let somebody else.
Okay.
I always go have coffee and chat.
Right.
I was going to say is how would you ask him not to drink coffee?
Well, that's what I'm saying. I kind of told you two go, and that way.
Go ahead.
All right. I'll go
It's your, it's kind of your guy today, anyways.
Well, actually, it was on the strategic plan, and part of it was when we had the discussion with Mason, Warrensburg and I were able to have a conversation after the discussion we had on finances. I reiterated, and because we talked about it, but we had never done it, is how do we make sure we're communicating as much as we can with the community? And so it's important to us to, so promote those things, anybody that's listening in. The other thing on, so Harold, I may get weepy here, when the community was coming together for the inclusive park, I don't think anybody knows just how instrumental you were in the background on that. I remember sitting one evening in a meeting and it looked like it wasn't gonna work off. And so I Facebook messaged Harold and said, I need $50,000. And so I'm sure he was like, because it was at night, he was like, okay, cool. I don't have $50,000, so let's stop. So anyway, so we had some conversations and stuff. And so you've done a number of things. I know Dollar Tree was huge economic and stuff, but for Warrensburg to have something as cool as that come together and you to help find a way that we did it and we didn't put a tax burden on folks. So personally, and on behalf of a lot of folks with special needs being that cool of a park, I appreciate it. And many, many things. You have a lot of respect in the community for diversity. I know that some folks have talked to me and they respect you and they want to know how to keep going with some of what you're doing. And also, you've been a great mentor, a great support for the community. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
No. I don't know what I was supposed to say.
You don't have to. It's 13 now. You don't have to.
Intermittent fasting where I can't eat after 9 o'clock, so. But
it was better night football too. So.
I remember when I first came on the council, you interviewed somewhere before, and this probably didn't endear me to your heart, but I think one of the first things I said to you is like, I don't necessarily like you, but I respect you. And, Warrensburg's been here 150 years before you, hopefully the last 150 after.
Yeah, you reminded me I was replaceable.
But I will say that I've learned a lot from you, and we are going to be a success without you, but I will admit it was kind of a gut punch when I heard you got the job. I was like, someone else saw it too. Crap. So I do wish you well. Like I said then, the sign of a good leader is someone who builds an organization that can persist and succeed without them. And I think you've done a great job of mentoring people and building your organization. So thank you for your service.
Appreciate that.
All right. You want to do your last city manager report?
Yeah, it seems like it's been a month of goodbye, and I don't want to steal away from the positive of the animal shelter agreement. So I've, since I've been here, I've always been one to kind of be quiet behind the scenes. I think when I interviewed with the council, I told you it's like kind of like the Wizard of the Oz. I'm the one behind the curtain pulling all the levers. You guys are the face, visible to the community. Serving here in Warrensburg has never been about me. It's about what I can do to make this organization better and stronger, and what I can do to make the community better and stronger. And so I prefer the same to be tonight. So it's not about me, but I've appreciated the 5 years that I've had to be here. I've learned and grown a lot as a city manager, professionally and personally. I just, looking forward to the future, I agree with Councilmember Brooks. You will be successful in the future. With the leadership of this community, the partnership of this community, It's been demonstrated many times, whether it's the Dollar Tree project or the inclusive playground or saving the animal shelter. This is a very active, vibrant community. And I just think that looking forward, I think Warrensburg will be better and stronger with someone with a new perspective and a renewed energy in my position. And I think I can help provide that to the city of Minot as I'm there. And so it was a bittersweet decision for me. I've enjoyed being here, thought about spending several years of my career here. But 2020 has been an interesting year. It's changed some dynamics for me personally. And I just felt it was better to move on to the next step of my career. So there's many members in this community that I'm going to miss working with, staff, council, community members. It's been a great 5 years. We've accomplished a lot, and I hope I've accomplished more or less everything that the council hired me for to do. I think we've made significant progress in all those areas. And we have an organization full of great employees that you've been relying on for years and will continue to rely on for years to come. And so I think we've made Warrensburg stronger and better. And I have no doubt that when you select a new city manager, that that city manager is going to help you be even stronger and better than you are today. So with that, thank you. I appreciate it. I think, Brian, you're the only one left on the council from the 5 that hired me.
My goal is not to hire another one before I leave, though.
Yeah. guess I spoiled that for you. But, anyway, I'm never very good about talking about myself. So that's all I've got. I will report that last week we did have our holiday luncheon. We had to do a little bit differently this year because of COVID. So we didn't have one big get together. We had food that was divvied out back to the departments. So that's why council wasn't invited to come and participate this year like we have in previous years. But we did do the service recognitions and provide the PowerPoint and provided that to you. So we had a lot of very dedicated employees that completed some very significant service anniversaries this year. So if you get a chance and you come across them, please thank them for their years of service. They've been here doing this a lot longer than I have. And I always say their impact is probably more important than what I've contributed to this community and this organization. So with that, I guess I bid a fawn for a while.
Danielle?
The only update I have outside of what was in the Assistant City Manager's report is that we finally have a date for when the audio and visual equipment will be upgraded in this room, and that is December 23rd. So hopefully by December 29th at that meeting, we will be having some upgraded equipment.
There you go. Merry Christmas.
The city council filing will start tomorrow at 8 a.m. and it ends, I believe, it's January the 9th. For 4 weeks. So, if you have any questions, just come see me and give me a call.
Chief? Doug? All right. Let's see here. Anything else left here? Don't need a closed session, so we can adjourn. All right.